Thank you, Duckling. There we go. 2-1 in favor of Bifrost, even though it all seemed to point towards Riddle. So let's talk about the beginning of the game. I mean, the way the bot lane from Bifrost were supposed to win, and the way Stefan played the game, showed a lot why Bifrost couldn't actually get that stamp of approval at the beginning, right?
Yeah, now there's a positive way we can take this conversation in a negative way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be bad cop, so Aragon can be good cop. Because one of the things
Okay.
which happened in this game is the way that Bifrost has been drafting in the last two games. They've been picking this Varus Karma. We talked about it a little bit at the very start of the draft last time in terms of when you lock that Varus, you think, okay, maybe you have to pick the Karma to make sure you guarantee shove. There's nothing that's going to outshove that. But Bifrost have been shoving very hard in that bot lane. It feels like they're kind of losing their head a little bit when they're doing so. And what we saw very early into the game is that left them exposed when they were making plays on the top side of the map. They were still pushing on bot side and getting punished for it.
Yeah, I mean, I play the opposite side, like you said. I think you could view it from the perspective. You could view it from the perspective that Stefan is just having a really good series and he's really good, right? I think Stefan has been playing out of his mind. These ganks early, just the way he executes the micro is really, really satisfying to watch. Like, I think we're going to see it now, but just saving the EQ. I believe this was the first gank, right? Yeah, and he ults the Karma heads up. He knows that they're going to get the kill on the Varus already, so he ults the Karma in case they can pick that up too, right? And using the
Terrain.
wall to block him off, right? Using it
That's
actually
so
as
good.
terrain. It's really nice, right? And then after this, there's a really nice EQ where he lands a two-man one. And honestly, a surprisingly good early game from Riddle. And on the flip side, a much worse early game from Bifrost. This was the furthest behind, or like not as far ahead as they have been, game in the entire series. Maybe it's shaky mental or something like this, but shows that they can come back from a deficit too.
And what you'll notice in these kind of clips as well is that Bifrost are typically, they'll be going for something like Herald or something like that. And this is the first game actually where we haven't seen that real butt of heads around the Herald. It has been a cross map instead. And I don't think Bifrost were ready for it. I think Stefan really caught them sleeping. It's a bit of one, bit of the other. Maybe Bifrost should have considered don't play both sides of the map. That's one of the golden rules of League of Legends. Unless you've got a champion like a Lowy, which can 1vx and do whatever the heck they really want to. You need to be very careful about how you're balancing the map. And I don't think Bifrost quite did that. And then obviously Stefan really punished them on the other side. So it meant that Bifrost had to enter the mid game with a little bit more thought process going on. Because as you were saying, Aragon, they actually weren't as far as ahead as they were used to in this series.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to highlight one thing. I'm going to keep wittering on about it this entire series. I feel like Riddle have a really big problem conceptually when it comes to drafting. And I think that is the understanding of DPS in fights. They just don't have the DPS a lot of the time when it comes to fights. Like, you've drafted Aatrox, okay. Why are you picking Seraphine non-stop and then no consistent damage source anywhere else, right? This fight doesn't highlight that. It actually hides a really nice wombo combo, and what Riddle's win condition is to quickly find a combination and burst, and then you've won the fight just like that. The problem is, when the game goes further and further and further, and you're essentially a full AD comp, I will die on the hill that Seraphine is not a sole AP source of damage, okay? when you're essentially a full AD composition, and you're against a really fed Aatrox, you do not have enough damage to burn him through.
Yeah, I mean, there's some other ways you can play this out, right? In terms of like actually, well, maybe you have a range advantage. That's realistically not been played through as well. Actually, the fights have been about like very much low range, get that wombo in there, and I think that's another thing that we've been seeing in this series as well. Some of the initiations have been a little bit all over the place actually, and it has allowed some gaps for something like that wombo to come through actually in counter to it. Actually, it's allowed someone to kind of slip the net and kind of turn around a fight. And eventually that's what happens in this game as well, because Bifrost, even though they are starting to fall behind, you think, oh, actually the Seraphine, this Misfortune, range advantage, that didn't tell the story of the game, though, and the fights became more and more fractured as it went on.
Yeah.
So I want to question something for you guys. I want to make this question. The fact that it seems like Riddle is able of using those team fight combos, they are aware that they need to win in team fights, even though the lanes are not going as they want to. The GP versus Aatrox was not lovely to see. As a top laner, that was just painful. But the way they're playing those team fights, and when you look at Bifrost, it seems like the opposite. It seems like Fury's not on the same page as everybody else. Shikari is just miles away from the enemy top laner. This is the saving grace on a lot of them. Side lane pressure is not existing for Bifrost as well. What is going on? I know you're the bad cop, so let's start with you. I saw your eyes rolling, so I want to see that.
I feel like you've kind of already bad copped it already in this case, because I would actually like to give like a shot. We're changing plot twist. I feel like half of the time it is kind of, Fury's kind of caught out on a flank, and Fury's been looking for those flanks, and I think that's very important that he has been doing it, but he's been spotted a little easily, been caught out by something like that Rel and the Misfortune. We saw that around the Baron a couple of times, and half the other times, like, oh my gosh, he's found the right timing, he's found the right angle, slap that R2 right the way through the team fight. I think it's more about the consistency of looking for those angles, and I think that's what's really starting to hurt Bifrost right now. The consistency is not quite there yet. You can see shades of the brilliance that they've had throughout the year, but it's few and far between in some of these moments.
Aragon, do you want to be the good cop?
No, I'm going to be a bad cop as well. No,
no,
okay, look,
everyone's a bad
three
cop.
bad cops. Double plot twist. Okay, no, I think they're getting caught off in side lane. I don't like their mid game. Their ability to transition their leads with side laning is very peculiar right now. Maybe it fell off last, because the thing is, when it comes to playing competitive, when you keep making lots of mistakes and getting stomped in the same, you sort of start to forget how to play. I've noticed this when I played. I don't know if I explained that very well, but it just does seem like they've forgotten how to play 1-3-1. Yeah, okay. Maybe I wanted to avoid the T word, but yeah, tilt. Their side laning isn't good, right? It just doesn't feel that way. So yeah, going forward, I really wonder what they can do about that, because I'm a bit concerned.
And I think the reason why we're harping, and I'm aware this might sound a bit overly negative, we did kind of all choose a bit of a bad cop angle.
Yeah.
But the reason we can do the bad cop angle is because we know the level of these teams. Let's be honest. We've watched these Div 1 teams throughout the entirety of this year. We know the ceiling these players have. We know the situations that these teams have been in as well. It's just capitalizing on the great situations they've actually managed to put themselves into. Actually, in all of these games, Bifrost have been ahead in the early game. They found ways to get the solo laners ahead. Fantastic, awesome agency they have. It's just like on the execution of it, which has just been a little bit off. That's what I want to see coming into the rest of the series. That's on Bifrost's side. On Riddle, actually, we've seen the improvement a little bit in the early game as well. There are good things which are coming out of these teams. It's just getting that last 5 to 10% to make sure the execution's been cleanly put through.
I'm just saying this to the production. Don't worry about it. So I'm going to do a switcheroo. I'm going to pull the fast one on you guys. I'm going to be bad cop at the beginning of the sentence, and then I'll turn it into the good cop. So my question is, I just need yes or no. Was Faith being useful at the beginning of the game with the way he flashed and all that? I know Aragon, be true with me.
No, I think he got better as the game went on, but I wasn't impressed. He had an early agency champion, and he didn't. Sorry.
The early game was not good for Faith. Let's be honest, he was pulling an XD and not a Faith. Everybody had faith on him, and he was just XDing it. But let's be honest, towards the mid game, towards the late game, he was one of the saving grace. And there's one replay that we need to highlight. This is majestic, like chef's kiss.
I mean, Aragon pointed this out when we were watching this as well. Look how quickly this is going down. This is crazy. The amount of time to actually think, okay, wow, okay, looking at the DPS check, this is a slick steal.
Oh, 200 HP. Right, and then what happens afterwards? Is this the fight where he gets focused down? No, this is where they turn it around the entire game afterwards, yeah. And it's going to be a team fight win. You think this looks terrible, right, for the side of Shikari, but just watch Shikari tank everything and not die. This is the symptom of the full AD composition with low DPS, right? He should have died there realistically, but the sustain and there's the armor is too much. And then Bifrost turn around and just win the fight.
Yeah, and you can already see the Hextech Soul's been claimed at this point. It means that if you are in a losing situation, it kind of reminds me of when you played against Zeri in summer. You are not going to be fast enough to run away. The Hextech Soul kind of seals the deal at that point. So really good pop ult, kind of getting that right timing. In slow motion, I don't think it really tells the full story. That thing was getting shredded. And yes, the pop ult does hit the jungler out of there. It means that the smite's not there to contest. If that had come a half second later, well, that's gone. You don't get that steal. And actually, that play goes completely different because you've already punted out a couple of people with Baron buff away at that point. And that suddenly, even if you lose a couple of people, you're still walking out with that Baron buff. Clutch moment there. Really clutch.
So I brought this specifically because I was confused with Faith throughout this series. And then I looked into this game where I think the word tilt is really important because I believe Bifrost were a little bit tilted the way they were playing, let's be honest. But it's really important to know that Hope, the new guys, are capable of jumping in and be like, guys, focus.
There's something which Jamada would say in particularly bad games. So like Viper or Hipray would ask him particularly, is oh, Jamada, what do they do to get out of this position? It's turn to religion. Well, it turns out Riddle don't, Riddle, I don't know what they've got, but I mean, Bifrost, at least they have faith.
Oh, man. Oh, no.
Can you also put the boo? Can you also boo yourself?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Homeland is a multitask color casted. Now we need more colors on this one as we're about to jump into the fourth game. That could be the last one in favor of Bifrost jumping in and facing Dusty afterwards in the bracket. I want to understand what to expect, and this is going to be interesting because we have 1 minute or 2 minutes. I don't care. So Eragon, I'll let you pick a team and you let me know what they need to do on Champion Select to win. And Imeta will pick the remaining team.
Oh, you're letting me pick. Okay. Bifrost have to just continue doing the same thing. I think they've shown they're better at every single stage of the game, right? So just keep doing it.
Well, easy. Nymera, give me more.
Good luck, Nymera.
So for Bifrost, I want them.
No, we talked about Bifrost. You need to talk
Riddle.
about Riddle.
Easier engage then. I think the Jarvan is a good symbolism of that. They need to find themselves easy engage. I think with the Jarvan and the Rel, that's been working out. That's been working out okay for them. Problem is, we've already seen them with that easy engage right now. It's more just like they have to keep doing that and hope that it works out in this last time. I don't see how it gets easier for them at this point. They've been indexing into teamfight combos. I don't really know where it goes from there, actually. It's very difficult for them.
Riddle picked the red side this time, and Yumi is going to be the first one taken away. The Udyr, for instance, has been left open.
Maybe they're looking for that solo lane counter pick, which they had in the very first game. And of course, they haven't had that in the ones after that point. Because Jax Plank, look, we know what he could do in summer. This guy was arguably our best top laner through a majority of the regular split in summer. We haven't really seen that today. Now, if you are going to mount a comeback from Riddle, Jax Plank is a hell of a player if he refines that form to play around that. We haven't seen that just yet. There's a lot of burden on this top laner for Riddle. He has to step up to the plate.
You don't wonder what power picks for me left open. Sejuani, Udyr come to mind. Azir, Maokai, these sorts of things. Silas is left open, right? I think it could be a Silas one. There's a Sejuani gone.
First game with Azir open as well.
But we've also seen a lot of like the Varus Karma, you know, based on the series meta, not just like the overall patch meta as well now. There's an awful lot of stuff which we have seen prioritized before. This is the first time the Azir has gotten through that. But you had some opinions on Fury's Azir, I seem to remember.
Yeah, okay, look.
Bad cop.
Maybe it was a poor game. It was an off game, right? But I was not sold on Fury's Azir. There were some really weird shuffles where he would shuffle into 5 people. He didn't have ulti, granted, there was no reason to do it, and he would just die, right? It was really bizarre. When he could attack from range, there's just micro in his team fights was not good. And Ziggs would be really interesting because traditionally one of the counters to Azir is range. So.
And now what I'd actually like to see is so the Seraphine's gone. You can't play through range advantage there. But typically when Azir has been countered, it has been like the very start of his existence, season 5, poke Varus mid. That was something you look to outrange because AP Cogmore, similar kind of thing. You're looking to effectively sit there and go, we outrange you. Azir, you can poke, but you don't have any sustain. So if I'm slightly longer range than you, I can play around that 20% of your HP. You can't fight after that point. I actually wonder if the Varus or Kevo would be actually a good pick at this point. Something that can play towards that. But this is where the next level comes in. You can't pick too many backline immobile carries if you've got a Jarvan on the other side. They reach them too quickly. So this is Bifrost saying, okay, you already got that Ziggs. You are not picking double poke into the Azir. I like the response from Bifrost here.
So far, this is an interesting one. I would like to see what Kennel is going to bring. Apparently, they're going to be the ones prioritizing the Varus.
They flip the range advantage. You see the Ziggs into Azir and you get a little bit worried, think, oh, maybe it's going to be double out range. You've actually got the Varus which can start threatening the Ziggs on the other side, and you're not playing into the Jarvan. You already have that yourself. You don't have to be as worried on that backline access, unless something like an Ornn gets locked in.
So, okay, I was about to say, what do you pick here, right? But what I'm looking for now is something to synergize with the Viego. When it comes to Viego, is what you're really playing for is like resets, right? So you want a lot of single target damage. I'm not seeing that currently with Ziggs and Ezreal.
What I'm seeing is Azir has been picked. You're like, I'm going to fight you from back here. And then you see the Ziggs and I'm like, I'm actually going to fight you from back here. And you see the Ezreal, I'm like, I'm going to fight you from back here.
Exactly. So I was thinking about that.
Everyone's just walking further and further backwards until the range hits the other screen.
Yeah, so to me, there's a real like theme, like anti-synergy going on, which I'm a bit concerned for the side of Riddle.
I completely agree.
So I'm not really sure where they take this. The Viego doesn't really seem to serve a
Rakan,
purpose.
Leona, Nautilus, that's
Yeah.
typically been your gold standard for this, where you have lots of skill shots, no longer skill shots after those big CC chains come through. I think when you have a Rakan ultimate, that's typically been one of these big ones. Leona Solar Flare as well, really, really important for that. With the Ezreal, you're kind of whatever at this point. And I love that you are all in here and saying, Orbital Strike, Mac round spinning up, everything is hitting that poor Azir and Varus.
The Gwen would be interesting. I don't like the Gwen
Yeah.
here, so I really hope it's not the case. I much prefer the Camille. It would be 20 times better. It's actually a really good pick into the Ezreal. I think it will be a Camille pick. Gwen has issues versus range because she has no real like CC and chase potential outside of the Ghost.
Okay,
So
it turns
Camille's
if you're the
really good.
shy or not, because the school of thought is you only have one W on Gwen, right? And then you have to all in during that duration. It's a little bit hard to match that timing. Camille, much more fair weather on that point. However, Camille's often someone that looks for flanks. If you are trying to engage on multiple sides of the flank and the Ornn just throws his ult to your side of the fight, it can be quite difficult to survive that. Once Camille is in, you are in. Same with the Jarvan. The Soraka, I think, is there to go, okay, once the fight starts, let's try and keep our bruises alive in it long enough. This is such a disjointed draft from Bifrost, though. This is so many answers to each other, right? We start off with Azir, outrange into more outrange, and now suddenly we're like, but what if we need chances to close the gaps? This is lots of weird mental thought process going on throughout the draft.
And just as you talked about, the Rakan gets locked in as well, so we're about to jump into what could possibly be the last game of the series. Nymera, I don't need the bad cop, the good cop, I just need a name on who's gonna win. So far there have been 2 times or 3 times Bifrost fan, so tell me now.
Riddle. I think it's Riddle. I think that you get one skill shot go... No, it's Bifrost because they have sustain. They have sustain,
Okay.
and that means they can win the range battle. I was thinking about it, but that Soraka changes things massively, actually. It's
It
one of
was
the weirdest drafts I've
close,
seen in a while.
but I noticed as soon as Nymera opened his mouth and said Riddle at a gun, I felt the depression in your eyes, so tell me.
This is incredibly hard to call. I'll say it's incredibly hard to call.
Okay.
I think the mobile AD and backline is really good for the Ziggs and sorry, the Ornn, and it's really easy to page, but you're kiting back. I vote Bifrost.
Yet again.
But this we could talk for so long on this,
Yeah.
because you catch the Soraka at the start of the fight, maybe everything changes. There is too much to track here. This is a really interesting draft. This is one to watch back.
This is why desk is not easy, guys. So let's toss it to the Casas to jump into the Summon's Rift to get that bird's eye view. It is Duckling and M-Test. Best of luck.
Oh my god. I am not sure what to think now because they sounded really split on who was going to win this game. And I agree, it's very hard. It's very situational. The one thing I did take away from the 7 test from Nymera was it's all on the Soraka. Can Soraka survive? Bifrost should have it, but if Soraka dies, then maybe everything changes with Riddle's poke. What do you think as my analyst?
Well, I'm glad you tossed it to me. I really respect that. I mean, one funny thing is that Bifrost completely has flipped the script. I mean, Silas is open, Akali is open, but Fury goes for the Azir first pick regardless. I mean, I think looking at Bifrost comp, they have so much. Once again, they have so much to work with, right? I think if Shikari, even though Kiev is gonna be so mobile and playing from so far away on this Ezreal, I think Bifrost has a lot of tools to actually find him. I mean, if he gets a Camille ulti onto him, it's gonna be really hard for him to survive. I'm just gonna say that I think Bifrost will take this one home, because if that's the fact, if Riddle has to catch out Soraka to win the game, I think Quick Time is gonna have good movement enough and good understanding enough to not get caught. So I'm gonna vote Bifrost on this one as well.
Wow, so what just happened there was Kennel guarding the entrance very far up the river, so you could actually spot the 5-man engage from Riddle very quickly, so that stops the potential engage Riddle now back. And remember, guys, Bifrost now on match point. This is potentially Riddle's last game of the year. If Riddle win this one, obviously there'll be one last game to decide it all. But it's important to play with everything, because after this game, after this series, one of these teams will have ended their season. There are no more fall cups or winter cups you can play in. No, this is the end. Make yourself look as good here as possible, so when you go on that transfer market or when you stick to this team, you'll be coming in on a high horse for 2023. And Riddle will start poking the bot lane to try and make himself look good.
Yeah, this is what both is gonna want to do. That Kiel, nice movement there on the Varus, actually getting decent trades already onto Keva and Nash. Nash mixing that Rakan Q, really crucial for him. And while I'm talking about bot lane, We see Faith already going for a bot side invade, looking to get that blue buff. And really, they don't spot it because they didn't have that ward in the river. So Faith gonna be able to secure this one pretty much scot-free.
Wouldn't be ironic if this last game of the day would be the one with by far the most action in the early game. So far, aggressive trading down on the bot lane, couple potions already being popped here by individual team members, and keeping our eyes on Faith, though he will take more than just the blue buff you mentioned, will also go for the Grump. Want to see what Stefan does here as well. Does he have any idea that he's gone? Now he does. So might just run in and try to steal a blue back, but potential rotation could come through.
Yeah, but that's the dangerous thing, right? I mean, Faith has both mid and top prio right now. I think if he just goes towards his blue buff already, maybe he can look to contest it. Stefan obviously forced to go for some route like this, right? But that means he's gonna be able to get collapsed on if Faith decides to do so. But for now, it looks like the junglers are just gonna trade sides. Faith takes Raptor camp before going up to that. You can just imagine though that Faith is gonna be one camp up, as Stefan is not able to go for that Grump as well. He is gonna path around towards that top lane though, but Shikari has vision on him, is gonna be able to spot him out.
Shot wall dive is still on a 3-second cooldown, so he will have to use the flash. Didn't have that easy escape tool ready just when he needed it, so good punish there from Riddle, as they will take that 5-minute cooldown away. More importantly, that will be back up around the time Harold. Now I forgot the name of it. God damn it, it's still tense, the situation. Harold, right? It's Harold. Harold?
Yes, exactly. It's
yes, thank you.
Harold the Herald.
Harold, yeah, the Harold model. Shelly, I should just say Shelly. I will never forget her name. Shelly will be spawning around that 8-minute mark, so that flash cooldown is something you potentially have a small window to play around at that point.
Yeah, and all in all, kind of a net win there for Faith. He's gonna be one camp up, and a lot of tempo as well in the jungle. Sure, Stefan, he gets a long sword, he gets the base first, but Faith is gonna be able to have more camps under his belt. They trade one crab for one crab. That's pretty much gonna be the action that we're getting in this early game. The Drake spawning in under a minute's time, and Stefan just has free time, right? So you can just decide to put some vision onto that bot side when this Drake is spawning. They're gonna be really happy about that. And this is the thing, right? Kennel actually already got a base going with his Varus, managed to pick up the cool. He knows that this lane is just gonna be them winning out again. Then they're gonna be able to just farm up a storm. But he also realized that the Keva and Nash are playing safe enough to not really get punished enough. So Kennel just going for the farming route. I respect it. Jaxplank now on this Ornn. His wave is in a really, really bad state. Maybe Shikari and Faith can look to punish him once again.
He already used W, still available to deny potential flag, and drag flag used. And Faith doesn't need to enter because he calculated it. And that's just a good cooldown force without costing anything yourself.
Really well played. I mean, Faith has been predicting Jaxplank's movements pretty much this entire series, been punishing him once again. And Shikari, he's just communicating the lane state, right? He knows that Jaxplank's wave is in a terrible spot. So he just tells his jungler, hey man, can come up here, get a flash at least for free, and they do so. Now if Faith and Shikari can get 6 as well, Jaxplank is just gonna be dead on this Ornn. And this guy has been under a lot of pressure, so I think in this game, picking Ornn, even though looking at the name tag of Jaxplank, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. I think in this time around, if he can just manage to live out on these ganks, it's really, really all that really can ask for of this top laner.
I want to zoom out a bit here and just take a look at where Nash is. So he's moved up to get some mission over at the Raptor, but talking about Bifrost a little bit more, I want to highlight both Kennel and Faith here. Neither of these have experience here in the European Regional League. Seen Kennel coming in from the LCL, hasn't really played competitive because obviously there's a lot of things going on over at that part of the world, and the league being shut down, LCL not coming into Worlds because of everything that's going on. So he hasn't been playing for summer in a competitive environment, so he's stepping back in. Faith, we don't know if he has been playing at a very low level, but not at a high enough level for the past 3 years for it to be tracked on Leaguepedia. So these two guys coming in, not really with much competitive experience recently in this summer split at the very least. They have actually both been performing very well, especially Faith, I want to point out, finding the early action, but Kennel has been consistently good in these team fights as well.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, right? Even though Kennel has been caught once or twice in this series, he has been performing consistently. And now the first rank is being started up for Bifrost. Riddle are kind of feeling themselves on this one. They want to contest the 4v4.
Very aggressively just zoning away so Faith can take this safely. He's been good on the smite, Faith, but doesn't want to risk a 50-50 as Quick Timer doesn't get exploded there by the big bomb. Regardless though, Stefan could still just walk into the pit, has flash available. It's pure 50-50 secured by Kennel. The Drake goes over to Bifrost, and they're happy about that one going out with the prize.
Really, really well played time there from Kennel. I mean, Faith and Kennel getting that smite and Varus Q at the same time, bursting so much damage to the Drake. Stefan has no real shot of securing that, but they are synergizing the damage so well. So the first Drake is gonna go towards Bifrost, and oh, Faith gets the red buff at the last little tick. Kivo, if that would have been a steal, that would have been massive.
That was so close. I really did think Kivo was able to steal it away. Talking a bit more about this Riddle lineup while we have the chance, I think it's worth mentioning. This is the exact same Riddle lineup we saw in summer, except for mid lane, where Faison just forced to use the flash. Vladi not being with the team anymore, and Faison coming in instead. And he's someone who has had his good moments, but has also been more of a facilitating role. He hasn't been the one to come in, play the carry trade, make the 1v9 outplays, but one, for example, the Seraphine in game 2, who added so much utility, allowing Riddle to come back.
Yeah, he has basically only played control mages so far in this tournament, right? I mean, we see the big Seraphine, the Victor as well. So really, really liking these control mages. And this time around, I mean, he is against the control mage himself, so should be a matchup that he kind of fancies. Should be really comfortable in this one. And speaking about comfort, we see Fury kind of chilling in this bush, facing as RD used teleport to get back to the lane faster. And Riddle, they're pulling a lot of members onto this top side, so Bifrost is just doing the same, but I mean, Shikari is just pushing in the top lane. I think Jaxpack has to be able to catch this one. This means that Shikari is free to roam towards that mid lane if they want to contest this mid wave and clear the vision that Riddle has in the river.
Herald up as well, that's really what we are looking at. With no Drake to play for, there's no trading here. Someone gets the objective, and someone will go home with nothing. Stefan might be looking for a gank up towards this top side. Shikari, unsure if he has the hookshot wall available. He's able to get out because Stefan doesn't really go any further at looking for something in the top lane. Will start up the Herald instead.
Yeah, and Riddle, I mean, they are not really having a lot of priority in this one. They're just gonna be able to start it regardless. And Jaxpack has splashed just back up now. He might be able to force it, but Jaxpack is just getting low.
Cataclysm available, and they just double Duncan for the first blood. Now though, Nash first in the rotation will be able to come up here and focus down Shikari, but the heals not quite enough, as Faith also has to run Emperor's Divide to buy space, but a Heartbreaker will close their gap, and Nash will take down Fury.
Stefan gets the reset, the crucial one on Viego. You know it, whenever Viego gets that reset, it pretty much means that you're probably gonna win the fight. They trade 1 for 1. Jaxpack going down on that Ornn. Not looking tanky at all on that champion currently, but Stefan finds one back, and they are gonna be able to secure that first Herald, which is ever so crucial, especially when you're playing with a 6 in your team.
Looking for silver linings. I was about to say that they also got a plate, but Faison just responded to that in the mid lane by getting 1, maybe 2 plates for himself here while Fury was down. So massive there for Faison and for Kennel, I would say, getting something for themselves. But more importantly, the one with the biggest win there was obviously Riddle overall, taking the kills and also getting that Herald. The only thing Bifrost really got was the kill on Shikari.
And this is so crucial, right? I mean, they talked about it on the desk, the fact that both of these teams have so much range to work with. The Asir, the Varus, you're playing into Ziggs and Ezreal as well. If Riddle can secure this mid tower, which they're gonna be doing, like they can do it just by all means, right? They can just put down that Herald with the 6W, and then they will get that tower for free. And this is gonna just allow them to play so much more aggressively. Playing a control mage without a mid tower this early into the game is gonna be super, super difficult for Fury on this Asir.
How they do that, obviously with the Herald, that will be a charge 6W as well. So Eyes on Stefan, where will he put that Herald? Will he go towards the mid lane, or maybe try and get one of his other laners more so ahead? But Faith able to respond at the moment if anything were to happen mid lane.
Yeah, they just know it, right? If that Herald goes down, they have to be there, they have to be ready. Bifrost now, they are used to playing proactive in this series, but right now they have to react to this Herald. Where is Stefan going? He has now the Divine Sunder already under his belt. Faith hasn't been able to secure himself his Mythic. So Stefan looking really strong on this Viego, facing now. Checking into the river, kind of looking for something, doesn't know that he's spotted, has no flash. Faith might look for this.
Yeah, Flag and Dragon, there comes the Slide and Glide as well. Should be enough. Great Satchel charge away, but will be closed down with the Cataclysm. Good damage back here from Stefan, who could be looking for the kill. Heartbreaker is available.
Oh,
that's a great blast on Flag and Drag to create the distance, but the on home will close the gap for them. Stefan will take the kill.
Ooh, really well played there from Faith. I mean, they get themselves the kill on the face, right? Really good ward placement there. I think it was Fury who managed to put out that one, but Riddle, they are not done. And Kenan, really well played there from him, just tries to clear the wave as soon as possible, so Riddle have no shot in trying to dive them.
One thing that's worth to note though, TP down from Jaxplank there to secure the kill on Faith. That allows Shikari to get 2 plays up at the top lane all by himself. So that's again something back. Remember, it was a 1-for-1 fight, but Riddle will gain another advantage by taking down this Drake.
Yeah, these teams are just trading blow for blow right now. You saw there, Faith goes for the kill on the face and they get 1, but then he manages to get killed by Stefan in the return kill, and Stefan still has that Herald onto his back. You can just imagine they're just gonna pop it now, and as we were talking about, Faison just gonna be able to secure this mid tower. There's nothing Bifrost can do about it.
So it's just done. You can see this wall side charge will come out. It's a disgusting combo, and it's with the plates as well. It wasn't just taking the turret, it was taking 3 plates and first turret and a second charge. Massive there from Riddle, who within 1 push with Faison being there can take the tier 2 as well.
Yeah, that is, I mean, really can all up for a perfect Herald play coming out from them. I mean, Stig's just making it look so easy, right? Can you just put the statue charge and you get the tower for free. And as I was saying, right, it's really hard to play control mages without a mid tower. And sure, Azir is probably one of the better ones to do it because he can spawn a tower on his own and he also has that mobility in his E to be able to get out. Champions like Orianna and Victor with low, pretty much low mobility, not really a dash. It's so hard to play without a mid tower. Jaxplank, he can just go towards that mid lane whenever he pleases. If Fury doesn't have flash, and just pop his ultimate, and it's so much easier for Riddle to get control now when this mid lane tower is down.
Taking a look at the gold, it's a 2k gold lead pretty much for Riddle here. And it's the first time really in the series that in the early game, they are the dominant team. They're the ones setting the pace and building a small lead for themselves. So I am excited to see how this develops, because in the past few games, it has been Bifrost getting an early lead, being able to build that a bit, but Riddle rather, fighting back at a couple different points in the game. This time it has to be Bifrost who fights back and claw themselves back into this, which is still a small goal lead at this point.
Yeah, and this is all we can expect, right? I mean, we're getting so hyped seeing Riddle being ahead because let's remember they were the ones getting such a dominant comeback victory when they were looking so really weak, so far behind. And right now, Faith is trying to cover his bot lane, but Riddle are gonna look to contest this one. Doesn't really look like any action is going to happen. Both teams kind of know each other's positions. And now we have to take a look at the items, because Shikari just finishes Divine Sunder. That means he's gonna be able to push Jaxplank even more under his tower.
They don't know Faith is here, so if Kevo steps up, yes, he can create a lot of distance, but could be locked down as well. No cleanse, so Change of Corruption connects, he's dead. Regardless though, they'll go for the recall, just pushing the wave. That is also because the Herald is spawning within 1 minute's time, as Stefan has already made his way up towards the top side.
Really tense this game so far. Sure, the teams have been trading blow for blow and they've been trading objectives as well. I mean, 1 Drake apiece. Riddle got their hands onto that Nasher, that I mean the Herald rather, the crucial one. Stefan now getting that blue buff as well. And Riddle, they're just all decided to just group. They get so much control on this river to make sure that Shikari cannot pressure as much as they would like to, but Shikari is gonna be able to flash out from that Ornon of Jaxplank. And once again, let's see if Fury can get something going on that bot side. Faison now going towards that bot lane tower to defend it.
It's Bifrost stretching out the map at this moment while Faison has to respond. Bifrost will go and reclaim some vision with Quick Timer being up here towards the top side, even go for a fight as Faith flags and drags forward. Shikari's here to follow up with hookshot wall dive straight onto Stefan, who they want to burst, but they can't burst him. Now Faith forced to flash over, but he flags and drags back in. Shut down over to Shikari. That's 2 kills for Bifrost, as they will now go back towards the Herald.
Oh, crazy fighter from Faith. I thought he was getting a little bit out of hand. I don't think they would have enough damage, but as our producer was mentioning, Soraka is just a bit unbalanced when it comes to this fight. You can bait, and then the wish gets you out to safety. Now Bifrost gonna secure a Herald of their own, and they can now look to do the same thing as Riddle did. If they can get the tier 1 down for Riddle, it's really a lot more difficult for Riddle's control mages in the 6 to play in this mid lane.
So 1 minute now on the Drake as well, and the next neutral objective to play for is clear for both teams, as now we've seen Bifrost pounce back. It's now just a 1k goalie, so it's pretty much negligible. It's not going to change anything. It's a small one, and let's just take a look at what happens here again. You mentioned Soraka, so let's take a look at the healing coming through from Quicktimer.
Yeah, I mean, Faith just thought that this was Nash being there alone, right? Then he finds Viego being really surprised, but he doesn't really matter in the end. Faith finds so many great EQ opportunities there, and while he gets low, it's not enough for Stefan to get a shutdown there. I mean, you have to imagine, if Stefan just gets the Jarvan there, they can look to turn the fight, but if you don't, then Viego goes down. You don't have the tools to fight back, and really clean pickup there from Bifrost. They get the Herald as well, and as you were saying, Duckling, this Drake looks to be the next objective because both teams are just running it down in the mid lane.
The Wish, quickness also gone, so both supports lacking the ultimate for the next minute to a minute, so be aware of that, as especially Nash will struggle to find and engage. But talking about Stefan and what Viego wants to do, he wants to get the first kill and then be able to snowball the fight from there with the resets. But with Soraka constantly healing people up, it's so hard, and now it's Bifrost finding the engage. Quicktimer picking up the kill. He is quite low though, so control is still in the favor of Riddle in terms of the Drake, but Bifrost, they want the mid lane turret.
Yeah, Control still on the side of Riddle, right? This is why they can secure that Drake, but Bifrost have no business in contesting it. They just decide to run it down with the Herald in the mid lane, securing that tier 1 for themselves. And they can even get the crash going, might even look for more, as Riddle are still just finishing out that Drake. Bifrost, they can secure this tier 2 mid and then look to go out on the top side, but Jaxplank is trying to engage onto them.
Timer down to half HP, so he can't heal that much. Faith, Kennel also down to half as the quickness now comes through. Nash is back in the fight after dying, and they're trying to burst down Shikari, and they can secure that kill. Hook shot, wall dive, no flash to extend for now. Stefan could go even further forward, but doesn't want to get bursted down by Fury. No ultimates on the side of Bifrost. Same goes for Riddle. So it's just a pure fight with basic abilities as Quicktimer.
Oh, Faith!
Great kill down there by Kennel and Faith working together. And now it's Faith in the front line, unable to be killed, and in the front line, Jaxplank, not that tanky over on the other end of the fight. It is Faith back, hitting onto Faith and forcing him to run for his life as he will continue to chase them down. Flag and drag, but needs to be careful as well. Not that healthy anymore. In goes Kevo, picks up the kill, and it's an explosive fight across the map.
Really, really explosive. In the end of 3-4-1 on the advantage of Bifrost. Faith playing really well there, kind of tanking Stefan's stun. He's trying to flash in to get that reset onto Kennel, but doesn't get it in the end. Faith, as I mentioned, tanked that up, and after that, Bifrost can just chase them down. Sure, Riddle get one back, but in the end, what we have to take a look at what happened, right? They popped the Herald in mid, got 2 towers, and Riddle were able to get a Drake. You see it here. They're just brute forcing their way onto that mid lane tower, and I thought this was looking really good for Riddle. They were just buying time for their carries to come back into the fight. Bifrost being so low, but Nash kind of faltering in his engage just when the Fury hits a perfect ultimate, make sure that Rakan cannot do anything. But then we see it here, Stefan and Riddle just kind of chasing them slowly, and then Stefan goes in for the flash stun here, hits Faith instead of Kennel, and this is where Bifrost can turn the tide of the fight. Bifrost, they just chase them down. Riddle, they have to just run out, and even though Faith were getting a bit too frisky there in the end, trying to chase for Faison, he does force that flash onto the Sig, so the next fight, Faison is gonna have to play even further behind from his towers.
Let's see here again, Flag and Drake just barely misses, forcing that flash as you said, and then Kevo picks it up in the end. So these fights are very back and forth. No team really wants to overextend, because the turnaround damage is there for both teams when you really think about it. Now the leaders bounce back into Bifrost's favor, and with the Baron to be played for, we're keeping our eyes on when they want to pull the trigger on that.
Yeah, now we can take a little bit of a breathing here, as both teams, they've been showing us time and time again that the objectives are where these big fights are happening. Not really a lot of random fights going, which just kind of insinuates that these teams knows what they're playing for. They don't really go for random picks unless they are certain that they are gonna get something really valuable out of it. And obviously both teams really playing safe, not getting caught left and right. And we're finally starting to see the second items coming in pretty much from everyone on the side of Riddle, at least the carries. You see Stefan now with the Blade of Runic King finished. Faison that has the Shadow Flame, and Kevo, that crucial spike on the SL with the SS Reaver and the Muramana. He's really, really strong. On the other side, obviously Bifrost has the same on Kennel, has 2 items already.
Just died, he got caught out somehow, somewhere, but Bifrost still want to fight. They're going on to Kevo. That's a lot of damage by the Precision Protocol, but it's not enough to secure the kill. Jaxplank forced to flash away as the hookshot wall dive barely misses here from Shikari, and they will continue to run them down. I don't know how they can do it, but Bifrost won the fight 4v5.
Yeah, Furious gets caught there, but then Bifrost says we are not done. And it looks like they're just gonna keep going. Faith goes in once again.
Yeah, he's so confident, and Fury just responds, so can TP back and has everything up for the fight. Really, but essentially he can't get in and they back up instead. They force the TP, good cooldown force from Riddle, but still it's Bifrost somehow winning a fight when they were the one getting picked off initially.
Yeah, I mean, giving Riddle a bit of false sense of security there, and Bifrost, they waste no time, goes all in, gets the kill onto Jaxplank, and it's a 1-for-1 in the end. And now we're gonna have to imagine that this next fight is gonna be in 50 seconds. Both teams have to base really quickly if they wanna be first on that objective. Let's take a look at this replay though. I mean, we see Fury just face checking this basically. He doesn't know where the positions is of Riddle, which is understandable, right? I mean, usually Riddle are just grouping up in mid and getting mid priority, but here we see them actually grouping as two onto the top side, getting Fury, getting that top lane tower as well. But this kind of allows Bifrost to go for a play of their own. Crucial silence, quick timer there to make sure that Shikari can get his hands onto Kevo.
Something we need to watch the poke before the fights as well. When someone poke each other out, the problem is, we mentioned in the draft as well, or the Desk did rather, Soraka. The healing, the sustain will be hard to deal with, so keep your eyes on quick timer's HP bar. That is crucial for how long Bifrost can remain in the front lines of all the barrage coming through from Riddle. As the Drake has now spawned, soul point for Riddle.
Really tense from both teams. The down part of Riddle here is that both silence are pushing. You see, Shikari doesn't really care about the dragon right now. He's supposed to push another wave in to make sure that Riddle is getting pressured. But Jaxplank, he's wasting no time. It goes in with the Ornor.
Onto both carries. The bomb will fall on them as well. Quick timer will need so much time here to heal them back up. Drake now started up as Faith is looking for the mid lane. They give it up. It's soul point for Riddle.
But we're finally starting to see, right, the kind of thing that the Desk was talking about. The range advantage of Riddle is so huge. And even though they're pretty much investing rather, so many tools, they have so much poke damage. You see there, the Soraka is not nearly enough to keep them all healthy.
Saying they're poking so much. When a Soraka can't heal you up from poke, you know you're in a tough situation. Has to use the Wish here, just to make sure his carries are safe. And our forced out of the river as well. Baron is on the map. Important ultimate in that Wish used.
So tense here. The teams are still trading blows, but as you were saying, Riddle secures that soul point for them. And if they can do this, the same thing as they did on the next guy. I mean, take a look at their bot side vision right now. Look at that river. It's completely lit up like a Christmas candle. They basically see everything that is going on. Like it's basically like a hexagon almost of words.
They know everything happening.
Yeah, they know everything. So if they can do that, same thing for the next rig. Be there on time. Be there first. It's so hard for Bifrost to face it because no one in the team can really take all that poke that is coming out from Riddle. Not even Faith on this tanky Jarvan.
So let's see what Bifrost can do here. They want to force a fight, but they don't want to do it in the pokey sense because they are being outpoked, outranged, so they want a full-on engage. And with that in mind, let's keep our eyes on Faith and Shikari to start these fights.
Yeah, I mean, we saw in that fight where Fury got caught on the top side, then Bifrost gets a kill on their own. The whole thing started with Quick Timer somehow manages to find a silence onto Kevo to make sure he cannot Argon shift away so Shikari can find and the Hextech ultimatum onto him. But that's so hard to like kind of reproduce in a consistent manner. And if Kevo, I mean, if that happens again, you would just imagine that it's probably him just misstepping. But he hasn't died yet, manages to get out. But as you were saying, it's so hard for Bifrost to find an opening right now because Riddle, they're just playing so respectfully. They know that in 3 minutes they're gonna have that soul point. As long as they're down for that and they don't give up the Nashor in the process, they're looking really solid in this game.
25 minutes in, no one wants to make the big decision of when to take the Baron. This game is back and forth. It's still close within 1,500 gold of each other. Remember, Bifrost win, they're on towards the semi-final top 4 here in the NLC Aurora Cup. While Riddle, they would be sent home, the year would end. No more tournaments, no more second chances. This is it. You have to win this game, Riddle. And Bifrost want to close it. They thought they could do it in 3, but they might need 4 after throwing game 2.
Yeah, I mean, you can just only imagine the mental stress that the players are gonna be hit by in Bifrost if they lose this one as well. I mean, they had it in the bag, right? Could have been 3-1 right now, but these are thoughts that you cannot allow to enter your brain when you're playing the best of 5. You still have a really solid shot at taking home this game. It's just getting harder and harder, right? I mean, Kevo now finishing his Cerildas. He's gonna melt through a front line. Pretty much non-existing front line of Bifrost. I mean, sure, Faith has a lot of HP and a lot of armor, but the Cerilda's gonna be able to tear through that. Shikari, not tanky at all on this Camille. if Riddle can just protect their carries, it's looking so hard for Bifrost to find an angle. They have the Soraka, right? I mean, Quick Timer, we've been saying it time and time again, he's so happy when he can play these range supports. But in this game with the Jarvan and the Camilla are pretty much the only engage that you can get pretty much on the 5v5, right? It's super hard for them to find an opening.
Look at Faison as well. He almost has 3 items. Rapid and Death Cap soon to be completed. Just full on raw damage. Knows there isn't that much frontline to burn through. As you said, there's some HP on Faith, but everyone else is pretty much one-shottable with the build that Faison is going. Kevo as well. It's very, very hard for Bifrost, because even with the Soraka, the frontline just isn't big enough to survive more than a couple poke damages coming through from Riddle.
Yeah, and this is the reason why Bifrost already are grouping onto that river. They're already here, 1 minute before the Drake, they are ready. They don't want to be in a scenario where they were in the last Drake fight, where they cannot simply enter. They need to be here first. And now Shikari basing with the teleport, you have to imagine they're gonna have to find some flank going, but he only has the wave on bot side to TP to. There's not really an opening in for the with the flank. You have that pink ward, a crucial one that he placed before he based, and he's gonna be able to get out of that. But now all eyes are on him as they have to find a carry on Riddle to win the fight.
Oh, Faith jumps forward and gets locked up, taken down. No! Flash away. I forgot about the Soraka, but the Heartbreaker won't be enough. But look who they've caught. It's Kennel. Great flash over the wall to create that distance. Shikari engages onto Jaxplank, but they don't have the damage to strike through an actual tank. Good poke back here from Riddle. And look how low Bifrost are.
And whenever you thought that Riddle would have it, right? Faith was looking caught again, but the power of the Soraka, now 11, has that rank 2 ultimate on that wish, manages to keep his juggler alive, and Riddle actually finding themselves in a 4v5 situation. They're probably just gonna have to give this Nasher off, but Jaxplank, basing on the sword, maybe they are not done yet. He's TPing in again. They're looking to out-poke side of Bifrost.
TP's coming in, as you say. That's simply a reset. Shikari, though, used it before, so he's already down to half HP in terms of ultimate. Pretty much everything, and I reiterate, everything is blown. Cataclysm just came back off cooldown. Drake down to 9k. Trying to engage. It's a 3-man Cataclysm, but they're getting out safely. The carry's still alive from Riddle. Faith, as you say, dead. And in the ground, it's sold, by the way. Riddle are fighting for. Remember that now there's no smite. There's no 50-50. Bifrost have to give it up.
Unless Kennel steals it, you have to imagine. You have to have faith. Kennel, go for the steal!
Paranoid?
That was a nice try. He doesn't have vision, right? But as you were saying, right? I mean, such a crucial fight. Riddle, they get their hands onto that soul in the end. Bifrost, they got that pick, but they couldn't get it in time. The Drake, you have to imagine maybe they should have started it a bit earlier because Jaxplank had time to TP back. And then when he's allowed to peel for his carries, Faison and Kevo, they have so much damage on this poke. You mentioned it, Siggs finishing his Rabadon. Kevo's being super strong and potent on this Essel as well. It's so hard for Bifrost to find the angle that they need, and Jaxplank, even though he's behind in terms of gold on his own, he doesn't care, man. He just has to stand in front of his carries.
If we were back to the game state of game 1, where Shikari has to be the split push threat, but as long as Jaxplank keep these waves in check, it's hard to imagine Shikari finding a big enough opportunity. And look at how tanky Jaxplank is. The only thing that can cut through him at the moment is Shikari with a lot of time and precision protocol true damage.
Yeah, I mean, imagine the Mountain Soul, right? And Jaxplank has 27% increase in armor right now. When he's building that much armor, like it's he is super tanky and can buy so much more time on this side lane. I mean, this is also a big problem, right? Because Shikari has been that split pushing threat in all of these games pretty much. But now with this Mountain Soul, I mean, look at Jaxplank. He doesn't take any damage from Shikari. He cannot pressure this tier 2.
There for Jaxplank, Shikari didn't get the precision protocol off. That's the damage to the Q.
Ah, but this is suicide.
So he needs that, and the thing is, Bifrost want to do what they did in game 1 and 2. Drag Riddle across the map and allow Shikari time to split push. But they can't drag them. They don't have the power, they don't have the wallet to move Riddle wherever they want them to be.
It's the thing, right? I mean, if you saw them time and time again in game 2, they were forcing Riddle to make the arrows, forcing them to make the hard decisions because they were constantly starting off this Baron. And Shikari was just on that Fiora, constantly pushing them to their limits. And in this time around, in this game, it's so hard for Bifrost to start an Asher because you're playing as the Siggs, you're playing as the Esther, you are gonna get poked down. And you don't have time enough to finish at Nasher. And all Riddle had to do right now is just pretty much play the patient game. I mean, if they want, they can just wait for the Elder, right? And they can just keep poking them at that objective. It's so hard, once again, for Bifrost to find an angle, but it has to be on Shikari, right? He's now... Jaxplank actually started to group. They have to force his Nasher. Shikari has the TP though.
Has the TP, but he's not Fiora in terms of how quickly he split pushes. Jaxplank wanted to just build a couple upgraded items for his team, and he will now go back to defend.
Yeah, a bit of an error there from Jaxplank. I feel like he could just stay on the tower and wait for his team to be able to pressure, right? He has that TP, but maybe Riddle thought that they needed that tank in front of them for them to be able to dish out damage, but this is allowed Shikari to get a tier 2 bot there. And while it's gonna be hard for him to secure the tier 3 top, look at that damage coming onto Quick Time, and it's so huge. They're going for the fight.
That is so much damage. The heal force goes as well from Kennel to be able to survive. So Baron now on the cards as the resets have to come through. Shikari take a bit of turret damage. He has to jump out. Can't just burst through Jaxplank. So Baron now started up.
A lot of pressure right now on the teams. Riddle, they are doing this quite fast, and Bifrost, they don't know what the lines here, but it's gonna be a flip by the looks of it. Fury tipping in though this Azir. Both top lane is still being on that bot side.
He's stolen the Baron twice, and Fury gets caught out. It's a disaster there as he goes golden, but only to buy time before he falls. Faith, you need to survive. They need Faith now. Bifrost will be run down here by Riddle, who are jumping forward, but they will return back to the Baron. Eyes on Faith. 2 steals in the last 2 games. Can he make it 3 in a row? But Water can only turn into wine so many times as he has to find something, but he has no vision. He has no way in. And it looks like this will be Baron for Riddle.
Yeah, I mean, unless Faith can find something really insane here. Sure, they don't have vision on me right now, but that's just being way too low. He has flash though. Could look to use it. Wait, what is going on?
2K. They're not hitting it. They don't want him to get it in any sense of the imagination. He tried hard. But after 2 mistakes, Riddle will not commit the same crime thrice.
Both teams learning from their mistakes. Bifrost in game 2, they learned that they cannot just go for the Nexus whenever they want. They cannot overstep like that, and they managed to get another victory because of that, basically. But then we see Riddle time and time again, as you were mentioning. Faith has been getting so many steals on the Nashes this time around, and they don't let him do that this game. They force him out, they force him to use his flash and the Cataclysm, and they still get the Nasher on the board. And now it's 1 minute against Eldrake, and Faith is still dead. This is gonna allow Riddle to control this bot side river.
On point, the Fury hasn't gotten his 3rd item, still no Rapidons on him, so he's not really hitting for anything, to be completely honest. And yes, the Baron is nice for Riddle, but what will close this game is that Elder. There is no way you survive Riddle's poke if they have an Elder buff. And for Bifrost, the only way they can cut through this tanky Riddle is with an Elder.
I mean, for sure, right? Oh, that two-shot barrage missing out just slightly for Kevo. But it's the thing as well, right? I mean, Bifrost, as you were saying, Fury not having his hands on that Rabadon just yet. He doesn't have enough damage, and also he's playing against the Mountain Soul. I mean, they are so tanky on the side of Riddle. Even Kevo and Faison has got so many shields now because of that Soul. And Bifrost, I see no real way that they can actually get into this river. Shikari, it's all eyes on him once again. He has to find an extra ultimatum on some sort of carry of Riddle, or Bifrost cannot really win a fight.
But how? And maybe the split push is the better option. 5 seconds, it's these hard choices that Bifrost have to decide between, as the most important objective of this game is now on the Rift.
Yeah, you feel the tension right now from Bifrost. Shikari starting up the Eldrake on his own. I mean, that's really cocky. I respect it. But Riddle, they are not in a rush. I mean, they have the Nasher. They're pushing down waves. You see the mid lane tier 2 actually going down. And so much poke damage once again from the Ezreal.
Timer down to half, Kennel down to half with 1 ability. They've dragged out the Drake, they know where it is, they know the HP bars on it. But it's
resetting though.
Setting Shikari in the front line. Can't tank up this damage for long. Has the GA to resurrect, but he needs to resurrect a couple more times. He wants to turn this fight around. Great engage from Nash, but no follow-up. Shikari out with the hookshot wall dash in the pit. Decide and glide into the Emperor's Divide, and people are falling left, right, and center. But Elder still stands and facing, secures it in the face of adversity. Riddle will stand strong and take game 4.
That's it, man. They are able to draft themselves a comfort they feel really comfortable in. They just outraged Bifrost. This is the worrying, the thing that the desk was talking about. They had troubles predicting. We had troubles predicting as well. But Riddle find themselves in a situation where they can walk down the Nexus and make this a best of 5 going to the end. I love this from Riddle.
It's never boring when the two Norwegian powerhouses battle it out, and for the first time ever, they will go to the full 5 games in a best of 5.
Really impressive stuff from Riddle. They've been hit with diversity time and time again. I mean, Bifrost allowing to snowball on top side for so many games in a row. This time around, it's not enough. Jaxplank, you saw him with that Mountain Soul, just being able to withstand the pressure that Shikari was used to put out on that side lane, right? But then Riddle's just range advantage. It was so hard for Bifrost to get anything, a real fight going. They could never catch out Kevo, never catch out Faison, and that's what gave Riddle the W in the end.
Imagine how you must feel as Bifrost, right? You had that game 2 in your pocket. You were about 10k ahead. You won the fight. Your minion wave was coming soon. But you overstayed. You made some mistakes and then you threw the game. Now you're going to game 5. Must be a little bit tilting, isn't it? Because they would have 3-0'd otherwise. Regardless, we'll leave that to the desk to decide because they are taking it away. See you guys.
Game 5, game 5, game 5. We're jumping into game 5 after the Pokinson composition. We need to dissect this one because there's a lot to talk about. When you have the Azir first pick and the way Bifrost wanted to play, I want to understand from you guys the champion select and the way it was set up. If Riddle wouldn't fall behind, would there be a world where the Bifrost would be able to play?
Oh, absolutely. I think there are absolutely ways that this game could play out, which Bifrost win it. And we saw, obviously, there's a lot of damage on this team. Because this draft, it felt like a cascade of gotchas, right? You had the Azir, it's like, haha, gotcha, you didn't ban the Azir. And then the ranged advantage comes in from the Ziggs, and it's like, haha, gotcha, now we can outrange your Azir. And the other side is like, but what if we had backline access? Gotcha. And it just keeps going like this, over and over until it feels like each thing was a reaction to the next thing, the last thing that was picked. And it did lead to the overall themes of the compositions being a little outside what we expected, which meant that the win conditions were equally hard to kind of digest at the time.
So let's start watching those with replays. Let's start watching it. The Herald fight, I think it's the Herald fight we have the possibility to watch, Aragon.
Yeah. And I just wanted to highlight Stefan, right? It actually came off the back of a really poor play from Jaxplank. Getting ganked before the Herald is a big no-no because this looks like it could turn out in Bifrost's favor. But Stefan manages to continuously find kills early, entire series long, takes the Camille, and continues snowballing with his heavy damage build. And honestly, just props to Stefan. Every single game, he's been a standout player for Riddle and the most consistent one.
Yeah, and when you have CC with a Ziggs, which is obviously a huge amount of burst, we saw this a lot in even Season 8 onwards, actually, with stuff like Ziggs bot lane, like Ziggs Leona, Ziggs Rakan, Ziggs Nautilus. We've seen that a lot over the last couple of years, too. The Viego is there to capitalize on that first kill. And Stefan being there in those kind of fights, just getting stuck into the mess, was a real worry point for Bifrost. You sat there thinking, if we mess up once, this Viego resets, and we fall apart as a team composition. That was the win condition in a lot of ways for Riddle in terms of how much can they force Bifrost to avoid that initial engage and how much can they get with one reset.
So let's understand how that reset is so important with Soraka on the field as well with the next replay. That is an interesting one because we knew Soraka was the target to take out.
Yes, and this is where things get a little bit awkward because if that's the combo you're playing around in terms of, all right, you've got to pile on the damage to the first target. Well, as you can see in here, you don't have the Ornol. Ziggs is on the bottom side of the map. You are realistically not getting your first combo off. And even then, it gets a little bit close. You have to call in that Soraka. Soraka has to get a lot of work done. But you can see how both of these team compositions interact. And when all the pieces aren't there, you got to do a lot of rethinking on the fly.
So out of a sudden, that book composition disappears. And out of a sudden, it seemed like Bifrost had the upper hand on this game. Realistically, when we were in mid-game, Eragon, who do you think was going to win?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the drafts, right? And honestly, I didn't really realize just how outranged they were. I guess in the draft, it didn't really click. They seemed to pick the Soraka to kind of counter that poke, but then the Soraka was just getting blasted by Ziggs after Ziggs and just getting one-shot by Ezreal as well. So I look at the draft and I'm like, Azir cannot auto-attack, Varus cannot auto-attack, and Soraka cannot even walk or breathe because she's just getting blasted. I think it was incredibly hard for them to play, and I was favoring Riddle the entire time.
So that's why those dragon fights were so important. And we have another one to dissect, Meta, as we see a really good TP.
Which one? Hang on, which one? Let me just remember. Which one was this? There were just so many of these big fights because it had come down to, okay, how do we get these setups? Vision control, incredibly important in these fights. Of course, you looked at Shikari looking for the flanks, just like Bifrost have been doing this entire time. And Stefan, you know that win condition of let's kill the first target. It's about 100 HP away from killing Faith in that point too. The Zigzag doesn't actually end up coming in at the right time. And while we saw the ideal in some ways on Riddle at the Herald fight in terms of, all right, this is what happens when you get the first kill. This is what happens when the battle lines get really askew. Things just go so weird so quickly, with one skill shot hitting and missing being the difference between someone living and dying.
And this is important because we keep talking about builds and the way they should be playing, and every single replay you see Kenal trying to get close, not possible.
No.
Fury
It's just not
thinks
allowed.
about going in, not possible. Nobody, look at this.
Yeah, and then you see the Nash get a 3-man knockup buying time whilst Faith engages. Right, look at this knockup buying that much time that they just can't hit. And then they're blasted from off screen, right, by an Ezreal ulti. And you just gotta wonder, how much damage were they doing per fight here? If we had that LEC production, you know, where they show the damage graphs, I wouldn't be surprised if there was just a bunch of zeros, you know? It's absolutely crazy.
And actually, it's really cool that you mentioned Nash there, because remember actually at the start of the day, we were mentioning like the difference in power between these two bot lanes in some ways. And Nash was someone that actually you brought up as someone that hadn't had a good tournament so far. Games like that start to just change that tune a little bit. It's good that we do check in with that because, you know, rightfully, we do put the microscope over some people and say, actually, not had a great tournament. Jax playing actually had some question marks over them. In this game, played a really good Ornn game in most part. Yeah, had some struggles in there, but particularly Nash in this game had on that Rakan a very important performance. That Rakan is what allows your Ziggs to hit things for free because they are CC'd in place. That was an important game to show that Nash still has what it takes to perform at this level.
I just had a flashback. Okay, sorry. I used to be a player on the UKLC, and I played against Nash. I just realized it's the same Nash, and we permabanned his Rakan. He was on Envision Esports, and he kept destroying us. Sorry, complete tangent. I just remembered that.
I love that smile. Oh, hey, I got destroyed back in the day. Yeah, it all clicks now.
So
it's really good.
For anyone who's ever read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, you'll realize that there's a lot of retconning that happens in that book, even though it's a literary classic. There's literally one point where there's a letter from a childhood friend that says, I know you've forgotten about me, because effectively I'm just being written into the story at this point. You have just done that. You are the friend saying, oh, by the way, I exist. By the way, I played against Nash all this time ago. I had this really important information to bring up right now about Nash's Rakan. Literary genius Aragon.
Yeah.
Before we go into the last reply, I would just like to highlight every single desk that you bring in. Oh, I played versus this.
Yeah.
It's about you getting destroyed.
Okay, look.
There has to be a positive eventually, okay?
No, I've cast Aragon.
Well, you were thinking about it and you didn't find it. Toss it to the last one because I want to talk about this one. The fact that it doesn't seem like Bifrost are taking attention to dragons every single time it is Riddle looking to the soul.
Yeah, well, the thing is, they did end up losing the soul and they came down to this Elder, but I think that just goes to show how difficult it is to walk into vision, walk into people who are already on the objective. It's very difficult to do so. Now, in this fight, it does get a little bit questionable because Fury actually gets in with a really big shuffle and you think, okay, late game Azir does loads of damage. At this point, though, it just doesn't matter.
So they take the Elder, they take everything, and then the poke position is just unstoppable. This is now game 5. Whoever takes this one is finally able to move on the bracket to face versus Dusty. We only have a few minutes before we jump into the pick and ban. Let's do a quick pause so you guys can go to the bathroom, get those popcorns. Game 5 will be right around the corner. I'll see you soon. Ball.